We go on to our next presenter, Dr. BHAGYASHRI Deshmukh, who's a cataract refractive surgeon from Deshmukh Eye Hospital, Amravati. And she's going to show her interesting case.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you all for having me here, especially Chitra ma'am. I'll just share my video.
Of teleportation of nucleus piece into the vitreous cavity. Those who have grown with Star Trek must be aware the catchphrase "Beam me up, Scotty," and the character used to get teleported on a different universe. It was a pretty usual case. Many of us do this at the spinal level. Everything was going well. I had a good rhexis, nothing untoward happened during emulsification to engage any gray cells. And suddenly, during cortical aspiration, we see a small nucleus piece in vitreous cavity. Spinal reflexes fade away and gray cells start firing. So my first reaction is that there is posterior capsular rent which I missed and I have to go and find it. So I start injecting visco all over PC, tried to push, prod and poke the PC to find a rent. But posterior capsule was intact. So next logical conclusion is that there might be some zonulopathy, some opening in the zonule somewhere which allowed nucleus piece to sneak out in the anterior vitreous. So I insert a capsular tension ring to buttress the zonular opening if there is any. So now I have a situation where there is an intact posterior capsule and a nucleus piece in the vitreous. So I have two options to manage. One, to do pars plana vitrectomy and remove the nucleus. And second, to perform a posterior capsulorhexis and do anterior vitrectomy. We chose second option since it is a topical case and nucleus piece is just behind the posterior capsule, thankfully not drop further into the vitreous yet. I do a thorough anterior vitrectomy, separating the nucleus piece from the vitreous attachment, and I slowly lifted it in the anterior chamber. Then the nucleus piece is visco delivered through the main port. Taking care not to let the anterior chamber collapse by continuously injecting visco while taking out the piece. I implant a single piece lens in the back. It's a good idea to support the lens with second instrument if your posterior capsule is not intact. Checking for vitreous strands in the anterior chamber with the help of triamcinolone, and the case is closed. Patient had excellent vision on the first post-op day. Now I put my thinking hat and ask myself, how and why did this happen? Previously we had noted a small cortical piece sneaking behind in similar fashion. It did not need any intervention because it was a small cortical piece. But this time we had this big, almost 2 to 3 millimeter of nuclear piece sneaking behind. And of course, nuclear piece did not teleport itself. And retrospectively, when we thought, there were absolutely no signs of zonulopathy. There was no wrinkles on anterior capsule while doing anterior capsulorhexis. There was no movement of anterior capsular rim. So it was unlikely that we missed zonulopathy. My phaco settings were normal, not very aggressive. So the last explanation could be that there might be some anatomical variation, some breach in the continuity of the zonules that could have led to this unusual complication. But I am still thinking. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, but wonderful video, wonderfully discussed. But I think we cannot, I don't think there's zonular weakness because your rhexis was round. You know, if there is a zonular weakness, the rhexis will not look so round. I think it could be a peripheral PCR, a very small peripheral PCR where the vitreous had not come forward or anything, and with an anterior hyaloid phase through which the piece could have gone behind. And I wouldn't know if at all it's a peripheral PCR, by doing a PCC, was it right? In the end, in your case, it went off very well. You unmute yourself. You're talking, we can't hear you.
I ruled out all the things step by step.
No,
Definitely there was
look
no
at the central, peripheral PCR, I mean, under the iris, where you have not, you didn't retract the iris or look in that direction. Could that have been the reason why it went, instead of putting it to abnormal zonules? Anybody else has
had it been there, the peripheral PCR, while I injected the PC, while I did the PCC posterior capsular axis, I would have seen that. I would have found it out.
Unless you retract the iris, you would not see it.
A peripheral PCR would definitely extend when you put in a CTR, madam.
I will like to agree with Dr. Bhagyashri's logic. We do see these small fragments, and I think Sai mentioned some time back about these.
Yeah.
Yes, so we do see these, and Dr. Chitra, we need not necessarily see ovalization of the capsular axis, because these zonules, the gaps, with the pressure, these small fragments can sneak in through the zonules, and there could be a zonular defect over there, and it can still sneak in and not cause any further damage. So I think that is quite a plausible explanation.
Could be possible through the zonules. It is true.
I've also had that. I've also had this. So
I've never had this bigger piece. Maybe it is because it is thin and elongated. Could be in that direction. Could go. But one point which I wanted to make is, when you open a PC, I would not inject HPMC. I would inject either viscose or sodium hyaluronate, which can be easily taken out, and if left behind, would not react with the vitreous as violently as HPMC.
There are two sides to that. If you leave behind HPMC, it will get absorbed maximum, it will cause rise of IOP for 24 to 48 hours. If you leave behind any higher molecular weight,
that would cause a longer time.
Bigger pain for a longer time. Okay.
No, it gets inflamed. It doesn't get absorbed that fast because it is stuck a bit behind the capsule and the IOL which is stuck there. It will not let it come out, and it will mix with the vitreous more, and it will stay on for a longer time.
See, she's doing a vitrectomy after that. So she's doing a vitrectomy. That's not going to leave any vitreous behind. And if you
after that, I think I saw the point is, general point is, I'm not criticizing this or anything, but I saw visco being injected and then the IOL being placed. So HPMC is known to be and published that it causes more inflammation and IOP rise. Inflammation is the more important factor.
Because many of these cases, when you have a very small PC rent while trying to polish the capsule and all, you just maintain the chamber with sodium hyaluronate, and you don't bother to go under the IOL to remove it. And most of the eyes are very, very quiet, unlike the HPMC. I think I will agree with Minu on that. And Dr. Bhagyashree, just one more question. What was the instrument that you used to do that PCCC?
It's a capsular axis first.
Microcapsular forceps.
And one more thing, it's not a nuclear fragment actually. It was not a nuclear fragment, it was more of an epinuclear fragment. When you did the vitrectomy, it was pretty clear. It was not a nuclear fragment, it was an epinuclear fragment. And that's why it kind of sneaked in.
It was pretty hard to be a epinuclear because it did not get with the vitrector. I was even tried cutting the nucleus, the piece itself with the vitrector. It was pretty hard. So in my opinion, it was a nuclear fragment.
Okay.
Do I have anyone in my school living it just like that, in that place, in situ?
I said that previously we even had a small cortical fragments. We left it.
Would have just left it like that. Nothing would have happened.
Maybe it was pretty big piece for me to leave behind.
I think Minu, Sai, and me, and Dr. Chitra are from a generation where we have seen half full 3/4 nucleuses left behind in the vitreous. What do you say, Dr. Chitra?
Yes. Small epinucleus would
so
not
these
have
younger people would have seen so many nuclear pieces.
Even the shape of this one also made me think that it is epinucleus rather than nucleus.
Same here, same
The
here.
elongated and all those. But she had the direct look through the microscope. She should be able to
Yeah,
assess better.
she felt it with the vitreous cutter. So.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it was
Anyway,
nuclear.
I think we've extended our time by half an hour, but I'm sure our expert panel would agree with me that we saw such a fantastic variety of cases today. It was so very nice and very well presented, and lot of commitment. And just as much as I learned, or Dr. Vipul said he learned, I'm sure many of those in the audience would have learned a lot today. And thank you so much, expert panel, for continuously steering the webinar along with my moderating questions so that we got all the right answers for all the questions. Thank you so much. Thanks so much. A wonderful set of speakers. And each of you, I don't know, it appeared as if you all had talked to each other. We had one IOL exchange, one iridodialysis, one zonular repair. Every kind of situation was discussed. So thanks so much. It is truly a wonderful